Another Sunday, another case of the scaries to start work week. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunday Scaries. We have all your gore, lore, and more, covering all the latest horror happenings, slicing open all the latest horror news, and dissecting it bit by bit, finding all those juicy innards. Pour yourself a nightcap and turn your fright lights while we take you on a tour of terror. Boom.
Hello, yes, again, just the two of
Adrian
us.
is neglecting us.
He is, unfortunately, yes, I think this is going to be the trend. I just spoke to him. It's really hard. I think some of you may understand to get an answer out of Adrian because he hates to disappoint people. But I did get the answer today that he is going to be taking off the Sunday Scaries until after the wedding is done and everything, just because of how hectic stuff is. I believe he's still going to do the stream, though, at least up until maybe the week of. So, yeah, you'll still get a little bit of Adrian content here and there. But, yep, we are here, and we will remain, I guess, the diabolical duo, where it started. I know it's not as good as the trio, but, you know, we got to go back. We got to flash back to the classics eventually, okay? So you'll see you're stuck with us. So.
You have to fall back on the two. You know, it's like Three's Company. But we'll carry on until Adrian gets back. I miss him so I'm going to send him a text after this. But, yeah, him, I'm sure he'll still keep up with the streams. And, yeah, we'll have him back on here probably in just a couple weeks, actually, depending on, because I know even post-wedding stuff, he'll probably have a busy week right after that. But then he'll probably be right back on it. So.
Oh, yep. And then actually, once that's off, I know he's getting real serious. He might be making his Splattercast debut with a little bit of a video. He's working on some list ideas, some things that he wants to give the old once around on that. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, if you guys like that, he can get us a little bit more diversity in there, because I think that's one of the best parts about Luke and I's lists is that they are, even though we have a lot of like stuff we cross over on, I feel like they're very different vibes. And they accomplish very different things when we discuss them. So I like that a lot. So it's cool. I think that having a third voice would be a lot of fun there. But if not, and he sticks to the streaming, you guys will always have that. And yeah, Game Frights is definitely going to be getting more heavy lifting as we go into it. And yeah, I think other than that, Luke, I know we talked a little bit about some fun stuff. I got to put a poll up in the Patreon for something cool. But I think we'll keep that shrouded for now. But other than that, I guess, how was your week? What's going on with you?
Nothing too much. I mean, I'm working on another hidden gems list, kind of with a bit of a fever dream kind of spin on this one. So been watching a couple interesting films there. I do want to mention this did arrive. Now we put out a joint list on Friday mentioning Slither there, and of course we have another list coming up that is going to mention Slither yet again, just because what a hell of a film it is. But we did get a copy. This is the new 4K steelbook, and it comes with a poster inside, which I got to show this thing off because it is very pretty. Hold on one second, let me unfold this bad boy here. I should have did this prior to coming on, but
we don't do any prep work.
Nah, so. It's all for the moment. We got a little Slither poster.
That's awesome. Actually, I didn't see the poster. So.
Yeah, this thing comes filled with a lot of different commentaries, and I did get a chance to check out the actual transfer itself. Very beautiful. I mean, it's never been a bad film to begin with, but seeing it on 4K does certainly put a whole new spin on this thing. And of course, when you look at the artwork, see if I can get it without too much of a glare. I love the artwork on this. I know there is a handful of Slither 4K steelbooks coming out right now, but I really enjoy just how vibrant this one is. I think this one does stand out quite a bit. So, man, this is a hell of a release. And sitting here in 2026 saying we're getting these very nice releases of Slither. It's like getting very nice releases of The Blob to me, because they're kind of such sister films. And, man, I just can't believe we're getting this kind of content as horror fans.
Yeah, you could definitely play Slither and The Blob from '88 at a double feature at like a little festival. That'd be great. And yeah, I was super stoked to talk about that film. And it's not the only time we're going to be discussing it here. We got it maybe a little bit more than just this. And I know not to jump, because I do want to basically say hello to everybody, but Rob is absolutely right. Slither. should be mentioned often. And yes, it is so definitely worth your time. But real quick, just because I want to say what's up to everybody. So we got Smiley here. Here we are, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, for another night of trailers and info on horror movies to expand our knowledge on our favorite subjects from our favorite hosts. Well, thank you, Smiley. We deeply appreciate it. Unfortunately, we will not be able to attend Fantastic Fest in person this year. It's definitely on the radar. I will say, not to just get too deep into the well on this or anything, but I just want to pass a little bit of thanks to all of you guys for watching the last few videos, especially the Whalefall video this week. That like randomly just caught fire. I mean, we don't really do those anymore. We used to do them. And I think maybe it's just something that, like, I watched the trailer, I read the book. We're going to talk about it today a little bit, so I won't spoil too much of it here. But like, I just felt like, you know, I want to talk about this, and I have a unique experience by reading the book that I think, you know, not many people have read it yet. So it's like, let's get it out there. And what do you know? You guys absolutely adored it, celebrated it, and I can't thank you enough, because to be honest, this is the best the numbers on the channel have looked in a minute, and it feels really good because Luke and I have really been doing our best to keep things moving, get things more formulated into more of a, I guess you'd say, like a schedule, an actual stick to hard schedule.
Yeah, because we talk about it all the time. We always have different ideas, and it's kind of just being able to figure out how we can use the time to get them out, and I guess having a farther enough gap between everything so it doesn't just start devouring itself. And I think the system that we're starting to work out here and what we certainly have on the horizon feels like we're really getting into a rhythm of things. You know, this is probably the most viable plan that we've come up with in a hot minute, and I like the direction of where we've already got things recorded. We just recorded a joint list, which was very fun to do. And we have a handful of other ideas that we're probably going to try and stay ahead on that. And then plus our individual lists as well. We're both cooking up different things at the time. And like Dylan said, you know, we have a poll up for Patreon, which is like kind of trying to bulk up the Patreon content as well. We have a lot of different ideas, which we have a tentative schedule, and it should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. One of those ideas might take a little bit longer than the others just because it's going to be a little bit cumbersome with maybe the editing, but we're still kind of discussing the format of it. It may be more like a podcast for the Patreon. But, you know, we're going to figure that out. There's definitely some cool ideas for that. And then, yeah, what we just talked about, which, again, the poll will be up here in a little bit. It should be a lot of fun. And again, I want to make that more of a hub for, you know, people who are honestly paying their $3. You know, we'll put more tiers in there. We've been talking about it, but I think now more than ever, I feel more comfortable about being able to deliver on that, because even last year when we first started it, I was afraid to do the Patreon. Luke can even attest to that. Like, I was definitely nervous about it because it is just such a different beast in and of itself. But they did like an update recently that made it way more similar to just YouTube. So it's like, and it crosses with a lot more of our software a lot nicer. So I was like, hey, you know what? This is much more manageable, and it got me more excited about it. So definitely, if you're not subscribed to the Patreon, check it out. It's a lot of fun. So
take a chance.
And let's see what else. We had a bunch of everybody in here as always. We had Gracie saying what's up. We had Violet popping up here. What's up? What happy Sunday, weirdos. Left Jab in here. Just got out of the back rooms. Want to support those horror? Absolutely. Hope you enjoyed the back rooms. It is great.
Wild time at the box office right now. We'll get into back rooms and Obsession as they're growing, because we do have a topic that we should have time for, but I keep getting that news every week. Obsession keeps popping up. It's such a big talking point right now. And then of course Backrooms is as well, with what they're doing with A24.
Yeah,
and them kind of approaching a milestone. So man, horror is producing, especially with, you know, what we're gonna have Toy Story coming out soon, where Steven Spielberg just released a film, Disclosure Day. And so it's like, you know, we have some
Supergirl's coming too.
Yep, we have contenders at the box office right now, but man, horror is holding its own, certainly.
Yeah, you still got to go see Masters of the Universe.
Yep.
It's got to be done. But yeah, no, we did enjoy our time early last week checking out Disclosure Day. Got to see it in the big Phoenix theaters up here in Northeast Ohio. Definitely love the folks over there if any of them are watching. They always do a really bang up job of presenting these. And it was weird because I think the cut we watched was, we didn't include this in our review because I don't put it on the film, but the cut we watched, I think, was meant to be presented in 70 millimeter because they were converting their theaters over the last few weeks, and it just wasn't quite ready for the critic screening. So when we got in there, some of the text was cut off at the bottom. It was
I was
super
like, where's
funny.
the location here? Someone tell me.
It's like I can only somewhat guess which state that is. No, it was fine, and it was one of those things where it's like it'll be great once they upgrade it to that. I mean, they've really stepped up the game quite a bit. It's a hike for us, but it's a hike I don't mind making because it is a very nice theater.
Especially seeing Disclosure Day. I mean, I'll see any film in that theater, to be honest, whether there is a
The
justification
Bone Temple
or
was
not.
great.
Yeah. But like seeing a Spielberg film in that type of theater, and I talk about in the review, I haven't seen a Spielberg film. I've never seen one in the theater, and I haven't seen any of his film. I haven't seen in a long time. I haven't really seen a new Spielberg film. It's been a minute. So Disclosure Day was my first experience in with all these different elements, and I'll say Disclosure Day is a perfect film to make the justification to have in that theater.
Yeah, it is. And again, like you said, I think your first experience there was Jurassic World last year.
Yes.
Say what you will about the movie, that's a perfect movie to test out the
100%.
the screen, the sound, everything. Like the T-Rex and that was so great. It never disappoints. I mean, again, I am heartbroken because I know, which I was going to say recommend to you. I believe the wedding is the week, or I will be gone the week of the critic screening for Supergirl.
Yeah.
I believe they're having it at the Phoenix Theater. I would recommend you and Zoe try to go to that because when I saw Superman there last year, that was an experience. That was the best like version or time I've sat down and watched that movie.
I've been looking for an excuse to bust up my Supergirl costume, so maybe I'll have to check it out. So always trying to find an excuse to wear, but horror films, unfortunately, just they don't mesh with Supergirl.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But let's see. I see a lot of love here for, I know, Penelope saying she enjoyed Adrian's game streams. Yes, we do as well. Thank you guys for watching them. And I know he really has been enjoying it as well. It's different, definitely, than anything he's done creatively before. But like, I think he's doing really well and getting into it. Because again, that's just a whole nother animal to us. Like we tried it a couple times, but it's like, it's just a whole nother beast to manage. But I'm liking what he's doing. And he's got a lot of big ideas for after the wedding. Once that's off his plate and he's good to go, at least for a while, we'll have him for hopefully about a year, maybe. And then, you know, he might have a kid. So it's so we might lose him again, but it happens. You know, we already did that. We did the kids early. So
I remember
here in 2022, you don't got to worry about that from us. We're good.
I remember missing when we were doing the Chucky season reviews. As soon as they would pop up, we'd watch it and then hop on to do the review. And I remember missing that because I was in the hospital as my daughter was being born, and you had to solo that one.
Yep. That was fun. That was definitely that was one of those where it's like I didn't mind doing it at all because it was like an exciting time. You know, it's like it's just super cool because that's like one of those touch and go things. Because yeah, we've been doing this long enough to where it's like we both have had good stuff going on that's made things touch and go, but then we've also had like bad stuff, like personal family dramas and traumas and things. So it's like it's a roller coaster. But yeah, that was definitely a highlight back in the day. It was cool because it's like that was so early too. Like
yeah, and I remember because it was she was born in November, so we had seen Halloween Ends, and we were gonna do like a video comparing the novel to the actual film itself and what the novel accomplished that the film didn't. So I had gotten the audiobook, and I remember like, you know, my wife had just given birth. We have Ella in the little bed. She's in the hospital bed, and I'm sitting on that chair, and I have one headphone in, and I'm just like, had my eyes closed and trying to get some sort of sleep. Falling asleep to listening to Halloween Ends was a wild time, just to be woken up about 20 minutes later for a nurse to come in and check on everybody and
always
maybe back up. So
Yeah, that was terrible. Those are probably like the two worst, which is hilarious because everybody talks about when you have kids, like you lose all your sleep forever. But that was like the two worst nights of sleep I think I ever
Yep.
had was when the nurses came in, which I love them. They are the best. Our nurses were incredible. They were just doing their jobs. But when you were exhausted and all that excitement and then stress and then nervousness is there, it's just like I
Especially
just
when the
want to
baby
sleep.
just falls asleep and it's like coming in, waking her up. Come on.
No, it's tough, but yeah, that was good times. Good times. Let's see. Smiley says had a graduation party today and a B-day party today. Hell yeah! Or yesterday and then a B-day party today. Awesome! Congrats! Happy birthday. Was that to you, Smiley, or was that a friend? If so, happy birthday. Hey, sorry can't stay, but wanted to come say hi and like the stream. Oh, well, thank you, Erica. We appreciate it. Hopefully she'll see that on playback. We understand and we appreciate you. I saw Obsession last weekend, so I had to do Backrooms this weekend. I want to see the original IPs to hit big screen horror. That is a great idea and a great call. I think that's one of the things that I love about like what we do now is because we're gonna be like those people in those like like on those TV shows that we would grow up with on like AMC where they're talking about like the 100 worst or scariest moments and blah 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 every
Yeah.
Halloween. It's like we would be those nerds on there who've like they'd get us when we're in like our 60s and like we're just talking on there like man we were there when we saw like Dolly and we saw like In a Violent Nature and stuff. It's like you got to have this kind of like roster of almost like it's like Pokemon, you got to collect the gym badges and that's what it is. So I love it. Oh, let's see. My brother-in-law brought my sister who only watches Disney movies to see Obsession today. That's a bad call. And she did not like it at all. Yeah, no, that's a questionable decision there, brother-in-law. I think you just wanted to go to the movie and you
Yep.
lied to her to get her there. Just
Like it's kind
you're
of like
gonna
a Disney
love
movie.
it. You're gonna love it. It's great. It's like, no, you just want to
Not at
see it.
all.
You didn't
That's
want to go by
that
yourself.
is a bold departure to throw
Hey,
someone into Obsession who just likes Disney films. But
listen, I've been there. I've done that. I've been like, hey, this movie's probably going to be pretty good. And it's been like an A24 movie from 2014 or like 2015. It's like maybe
The
Killing
Witch.
of a Sacred Deer or something. Like, just like, what the fuck did you just make me watch? Yeah, The Witch. Oh my God. I still remember the best feeling ever walking out of that movie and being like the only person out of like a group of like 12 people who I was the only one who liked that movie. And now I feel completely vindicated because like most of the people I went with now love that movie. And it's
Oh,
like,
really? They came
yep,
around to it.
a lot of them did. Haley came around to it. That was after she saw like I think The Lighthouse and Northman, because like she wanted to go back and give it another shot, and she really appreciated how like the aesthetic and everything and how like the time period and like really getting to know his like methodology of like taking everything down to as accurate as possible and all that. She appreciates history, so she loves Robert Eggers now, and she really liked it. So
A very interesting transition in horror at that point too, because say what you will about the term elevated horror, but it kind of did change the game in terms of what we ask for as an audience. And it's interesting, and I don't think it's probably settled into us at this moment that we lived through that transition from basically the normal version of horror into what they deem as elevated horror, and it's really had an effect on other films as well. But it's like I think people back then kind of cringed a little bit at like, wait, it's asking more from a cognitive perspective to say, I'm not going to spell everything out for any kind of some things you have to do research on, some things you already have to know. It does have some sort of context that you might not be aware of, but I'm not going to explain that to you. And nowadays, arguably at least 10 years removed from that, we kind of sometimes expect that, where it's like everything may not be spelled out to me, whether it's just from a minute perspective or way bigger in some of those A24 films. It's like, I think the expectations there's a little more. So it's like some people may go back and revisit and reappraise some of those films that they were like, I wasn't expecting that when I walked into the theater, but now I think expectations have changed and what we want to look for in actual film itself, we're willing to do a little bit of extra work. Because I mean, like, look at Backrooms. I think some people go into that not really knowing too much about the lore, but you're willing to understand to go see a movie like that and kind of just find some sort of enjoyment, because it's a quality film.
Yeah, I was just really considering this as you're talking about that, and it almost makes me want to do like a video or something talking about like the evolution of horror through the last like 20 years. Because if you
Yeah.
think about it, like, yeah, you go back to when A24 first started coming out and like they started really popping up in the horror game. Like, horror was at that time very synonymous with things like Insidious and kind of the big name stuff. So it wasn't like as prominent. There's a lot of great stuff that was like smaller, but like even go back to like It Follows and the Babadook and how those movies just like really like kind of turned people off by how like weird and different they were, by being a little bit more art house, a little bit more unafraid to show some uncomfortable topics. And then you just cut to like circa 2018, 2019 with things like Midsummer. This is a post Hereditary era where it's like now people expect that. Like you said, it's a little bit more accepted. And then I think, like you said, we get into pandemic, post pandemic, where now some of that 80s stuff that people were kind of dissing on and saying like, oh, I don't really care about slashers anymore, gets exciting again. It's just such a weird, like, little wave and trends and how it goes. So it's like, but it is interesting because I almost feel like nowadays people who get into A24, if they make a movie like they did back then, like The Witch or anything like that, I think a lot of the audiences would be like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't think they're gonna be all about it. So it's very strange to watch a studio and or just like the era of like horror and just how it works, just kind of like, again, go through these waves, these peaks and valleys, and like how people evolve.
Yeah, and what we expect as an audience. I remember probably one of my first exposures, one that I certainly remember, and it's not even a horror film, but I remember watching the Sean Baker film Tangerine, and I was like, man, I love the realism here. It feels like such a different flavor than what I was expecting in film, and I think that really did open up my brain. Like fast forward to, I talk about Malignant all the time and how that opened up my brain in terms of a taste of horror. I think Tangerine did that when I wanted to look at these films that were maybe a little more elevated, a little more DIY punk rock, that kind of element to it. And you certainly get that with elevated horror because it feels like such an alternative as to what we were getting prior to then. Because it's like when you look at it, like you were talking about the past 20 years, it's like, we lived through Saw and that aspect of that first
Brother,
film.
that's almost 30 years.
Yeah. Well,
that's like where we're getting.
Yeah, that's where it's like, but what I'm getting at here more so is Saw kind of kicked off in a sense with the torture porn of everything, which was like hardcore 2006, 2007, as we got deep into the Saw franchise and everything. Then we started moving into The Conjuring being such a big deal, and that kind of sparking Insidious and having some sort of a restoration of paranormal films. But then it's like elevated horror popped up.
It's amazing because like you can really see how like I love how Rob put this too. I think the psychology of horror had a weird awkward puberty like growth spurt around 2014. I think so because like you could see people like James Wan making movies like Death Sentence, which is very much an ode to these 70s early 80s crime revenge movies, and like it wasn't all that widely accepted and people weren't in love with it. But then you go just like when did Brawl in Cell Block 2099 come out? Like
that was a little bit later. Was that
19?
Yeah, I think so.
And that movie was like applauded for doing not the same story, but relatively a similar style that was criticized back then. And it's like you watch how James Wan kind of, I guess in a way, with things like he went from Saw to then things like Insidious and then The Conjuring, he really shaped a lot of those early aughts for the like horror and just all the trajectory. So it's kind of funny because once you get more independent art house, some streaming stuff starts popping in there and starting to pop up, that's when I think you really start to see the shift happen where suddenly all weird horror is suddenly very interesting again, like stuff that's a little bit more risque or something that's not so violent and like physically brutal but is a little bit more psychological, like what Rob was saying.
It's funny how it kind of works, and as we're talking about these trends, where we go into, I guess, like the torture porn era, and then we go through, and that breath of fresh air is kind of this elevated horror. But then we get exposed to elevated horror, and it's like, man, I just want something a little more basic with my horror. So what becomes the alternative becomes mainstream, and then we find a different alternative, like Art the Clown, and kind of
Mhm.
the resurgence of splatter horror, where it's like, man, I just want to have some really graphic stuff, And it's funny how it starts off as the alternative, becomes a mainstream, then we go into this revolving door of then what's going to be next, as we see things like Curry Barker's Obsession and in Backrooms as starting to become probably a little bit mainstream horror, I think, here in the next few years, as to maybe what we're going to be seeing, Markiplier's Iron Lung, things like that. It's like, I'm curious if we're already starting this transition into another horror trend. We just are in the infancy stages, so we can't really say that it's happening, but there are kind of little trickles of maybe we're in that transitional period right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to make a movie right now. Otherwise, we're gonna miss the boat because it's YouTuber movie time now. It's been YouTuber movie for a while, but it really seems like that's where, with the trifecta of Backrooms, Obsession, and if you want to throw in Iron Lung from earlier this year, it's like, yeah, and I honestly think like Iron Lung is having more of an effect than I think even Backrooms and Obsession are having, weirdly to say, because I think Iron Lung opened the door to, an audience and a people like if we had enough people, like if all of us had enough money to throw into a pot and fund a movie, like it would be one of those things where it's like, that's possible now. Somebody can do that and actually make that fully their own. You don't have to go the route like what Chris Stuckman did, where it's like half crowdfunding, half studio. It's like he dead ass just went and did the whole thing. And it's like, I feel like that's going to start happening more because we saw Kyle Edward Ball did it and his was a little bit more of a traditional route, but like still he did that himself for like $11,000. He said it was like, it's stupid crazy, man.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we're talking about these different trends, but it seems like they're almost evolving at a rapid pace. Where you talk about Chris Stuckman and like doing some crowdfunding aspects, where it was like that was kind of the norm when he started Shelby Oaks and everything, and then Markiplier came along and just funded the entire thing himself. Gray Barker came along and did a $750,000 film that is making millions upon millions of dollars at this moment. So it's like already the model's changed within just a couple of years to what you can achieve in horror, where it seems like the crowdfunded almost is one aspect, but then also actually funding, depending on your fan base and the income that you have, is like, hey, I can distribute this myself. Markiplier was talking about printing Blu-rays in his home and sending those out personally. It's such a wild time, because it's like, I know there's a huge discussion on some of the crew that worked on Obsession and their pay and stuff like that, and how much Obsession's making right now. And it initially starting out as an independent film, and no one was going to really call how much this thing was going to make at the box office. So it's like, we're really in this interesting period right now where there's a lot of discussions happening, and horror is just evolving. It seems like at such a rapid pace, even from 5 years ago, probably even from when we started this channel.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has. It's going to be interesting here in another couple years to see even just what's going to happen after this summer with, Backrooms, Obsession, Iron Lung. Like, where are we going to be sitting? And it's like, yeah, we got some ideas, we got some projects. I don't like to talk about it because when you start talking about it, then expectations grow. But we are definitely working on something. Especially as if we can kind of keep this a little bit more like getting this schedule worked out, like we were talking about at the beginning, that's going to make more time to make some of that happen. So I'd hope maybe one day we'll get to grace, at least step in the ring, I should say, as
Throw a few
everybody should.
punches.
Yeah, see if we can get a movie out there that even some of y'all would like. So that'd be cool. And then let's see here. And then we should probably hop into the news here. But Penelope said, I just watched Shelby Oaks the other day and liked it pretty well. Awesome. Heck yeah, I know. The kid they got to play the baby in that was great. Like, that dude was so cool. Like, bro, killed it, crushed it. I was there.
Clearly studied film.
Yeah, and it's a fun one. I definitely think that's a movie that's always going to be difficult for me because of that connection to it, to really say like how I truly feel about like them, because I look at that movie in such a different light. You know what I mean? Like there's such a deeper like look at that. It's like I never know if like I can trust, because so many people have said, oh, it's not a great movie and stuff like that. And I'm like, really? Like I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Like, but again, it's the ultimate like, rose colored glasses, I guess, when your child is in a movie. It's like, yeah, it's pretty fucking cool. Like,
Yeah, I know. Releasing that review was interesting because we always get accused of being compromised, and at least one review we release a month. But I think that was also one of the big ones where it's like, yeah, from the same part of Ohio, and have a rapport with them. It's like, well, I was certainly objective of what exactly I thought was wrong with the film, but apparently that was not good enough.
Nope. Nope. And even me, I threw my criticisms out there, and it wasn't enough. But hey, I will take what I can get for it. I'm glad more people are discovering it, because I think it's going to be one of those ones where there's a handful of filmmakers, I think, who came from YouTube who kind of just missed this boom. Unfortunately, I think maybe people thought Stuckman's movie was going to do that, but I think he just came in just a little bit early, because like had his movie come out during all this, it's like maybe people would have been more hyped about it. Maybe it would have gotten a different release, but hey, it is what it is. Let me see.
I think the bar is being set so high, especially when you
True.
look at something like Backrooms and Obsession. Honestly, those are films that, as we get the ball rolling in terms of what could happen with YouTuber horror, or making transitions into film, we started off with some of the best filmmaking. So it's like I think that bar is going to be set so high for whoever steps into the ring next, which unfortunately they're going to be fighting from underneath, because hey, you have to compare to Obsession and Backrooms right now, and those are just doing monumental things at the box office. We're not always going to get that, so it's like I think more often than not it would be more of a Shelby Oaks kind of take on something, because looking at Backrooms coming from a very unique lore that Kane Parsons just really developed
True.
and had such a great handle on it. And then Curry Barker just understanding human behavior and being able to really write a masterpiece of a film. It's like those are unfortunately probably exceptions to the rule. And we just it's like Jaws being, one of the, it being the best shark movie and happening so many years ago, and then seeing subsequent shark films. But I'm very excited about it because I think maybe it's not an accident that people have YouTube channels and are being able to make interesting horror, because you get the critiques right away in terms of anything that you're discussing. Whenever we release these lists, there's a lot of great discussions in the comments about this or that. And I think that kind of opens up everyone's brain. So it's like, it's having the luxury of almost instant feedback. So it's like you almost can kind of shape your interactions in how you would create a film. And I think maybe that's having an effect on the quality of the films that we're seeing being released at the theater from YouTubers.
Yeah, I would say so. That's hopefully the trajectory it goes. But Gracie has a good point here. With everyone is celebrating how much money Obsession made, but who's making the money? It's Blumhouse, who acquired it after it's done. The people who made the film aren't seeing any of that money. Yeah, it's a bit of an insidious business, yes, because unfortunately that's I think really where the money is coming in from them. I imagine it was probably Curry Barker and whoever the main set of producers were, probably that main core group. They might have gotten paid up front for their film, so that way Blumhouse could obviously distribute it. There was a bidding war, we know that. And then I'm sure they're getting paid on the back end on some points if they negotiated well. That's the only thing. But yeah, anybody below them, yeah, it's unfortunately that's just, unless they negotiate it, that's just what it is. And yeah, I think that the idea, she also followed up here with Markiplier giving his whole crew bonuses is amazing, but that's something he's able to do because he 100% owns the rights to his film. And that's why I think that's the one that is a little bit more interesting. Even though I love Obsession and I love Backrooms, I would say I like those movies more than I liked Iron Lung. I would say that that's the more interesting play here, because that is truly self-financing, being able to say, hey, we made all this money and I can give it to my group of 10 friends who helped me make this possible. It's like that is so much more ideal. And I think that you would get a lot more people willing to say, like, yeah, I'm gonna, like how we would probably have to do it if we did it like them, where it's like, if we're doing our own Iron Lung, it's like we get all the people we know and all the people they know who are willing to do this in their free time. We're going to work on it every day, but we're going to have as many people come in and try to schedule them in as we can and work around the clock for it. And that's just like, I think hopefully the trajectory of where it goes. It's almost, not to keep my tangent going here, talking about the whole Francis Ford Coppola Apocalypse Now thing in that video I did a few weeks ago. There was a whole part of that where he's talking about having his own studio and how it would all be like everybody who works there puts in and everybody gets what's out when the movie goes to cinemas. And it's like, this is actually really a possibility at this point. If you follow the Markiplier method, if you're able to do it, that's very much a thing this future could bring.
And I'm curious, when we look at things like Obsession and Backrooms, did they, with the numbers that they're making now, did it almost break the model out of the gate where it's like, are people going to be necessarily given the chance or have to do the Markiplier route, where are studios going to start taking chance on YouTubers right out of the gate to say, do you have an idea? Because we might just want to start scooping up some talent, because, you know, there is a case to be made that there's already, depending on how big your following is, there's going to be a built-in fan base. That certainly was to an extent, I think, to Iron Lung. There were people there that were huge fans of Markiplier and just wanted to go out and support. So it's like, are studios going to start swooping in and looking at followings and things and say, hey, man, come to a film. We'll see how it works out. And, you know, you're not going to have that chance to even self-finance before you get into the game. And studios are going to be like, yeah, we already signed you to a certain contract. So it's like, you know, looking at, you know, if Backrooms had come out prior to Obsession being made, does Curry Barker make this film for $750,000, or does, you know, someone come in and say, hey, do you have an idea? Because we sell milk and cereal and we'll sign you to a big contract and the studio will already have their hands in the pot. It's an interesting dynamic that I don't know what the future is going to look like, because I could see studios coming in and kind of cherry picking some people that have a following already to say, let's see if we can get your movie made.
True. And I don't want to extend this any longer, but there are some other comments in here I do want to point out. So here says, movie crew is journeyman work. Everyone can't get a cut. That is true. And the end credits and word of mouth / reputation is your resume. That is also true. It does come with the territory, unfortunately. And it's one of those things where it's like, I would like to see that change a little bit, but it's also, there is a level of, there's like, you know, I guess you would say almost like you gotta prove yourself. It's a lot like how YouTube works. It's like, we only get the best in with what we put out. And if we put out our best, we do something that really works and we pay attention to, you know, what people are excited to hear us talk about. That's how it works. But yeah, it's like the same thing with people in crews. Like, you'll get people who they dictate their salary and they usually negotiate it up front. Most everybody has a contract of some sort. But yeah, when it comes to back end money stuff, it's really not in their best interest to do that. Because the best thing for a person like that, especially working on a crew, is like, if they get reputation credit from one director or one producer to another, it's like they can go from one project to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and they're able to collect almost a steady paycheck. And that's how it works for them.
And I'm curious if, you know, like I said, do studios change how they operate from now on with Backrooms and Obsession coming out? Do we almost see like when people are negotiating, do we see like an Obsession clause to be like, hey, if my film makes 200% of its budget, then on the back end, the crew and everyone has to start getting some sort of percentage, because it's like, we see what's going on with Obsession, but, you know, again, it's a studio thing. So who knows who's making money and who's not making money out of that. But it's like, do YouTubers come in kind of a little more prepared and say, well, if we're making X amount of money and the budget is this, and we start making heavy profits on everything, because one of the aspects being I have a built-in following and people are going to show up to this, then if you start making an abundance of cash, I think, they can partake in it. So I'm curious if we're going to start seeing a little bit different contract negotiations, because if studios do come in and start cherry picking people that have a following, and there is some sort of bidding war between two different studios, maybe they can call their shots a little bit better. And in hindsight, knowing what Obsession is going through right now, they can be like, well, I've seen this. I know what it could lead to. So let's negotiate that.
And I think one of the things I do want to touch here with Rob, what he's saying here, and then he's got a follow up, but I'll read it off, is but here's the interesting topic. Carpenter and Clive Barker didn't have YouTube clicks to get them started. Coppola was wiping actors' drool off their chins before he could direct. Oh, and I'm not saying that YouTube is ruining the advancement. I'm just talking about startup costs and new names cutting their teeth. And I think the biggest thing you got to look at when it comes to this conversation too, and it really is, I think what ultimately has changed the entire game, and I'm not just talking about the internet or sites like YouTube, TikTok, where people can get their start. It is that everybody literally, and I hate to be this guy, but it is true, and it's why it's said a bunch. Everybody has a camera now. Everybody can get access to like consumer grade. It may not be top of the line, but you can get pretty decent, pretty good quality equipment to make a movie for relatively cheap. And if you're somebody who wants to do it, or you're somebody who's like us, who does videos and streams and talks to you guys and does videos like this, it's like, yeah, you kind of just acquire that stuff. And it's like, really what we're seeing is depending on the angle you go, it really is like coming down to budget, and just ultimately, if you can get the damn thing made yourself, the way that I look at it, if you can do it yourself, like if Luke and I made this movie, just us, basically like a Blair Witch style film, brought it to you guys and basically said, all right, now we want to blow this thing up and try to get distribution. That's not such a crazy thing anymore. And the Markiplier method shows that. And it shows that how that can work. And I think the biggest thing that changes the conversation from like Clive Barker and Carpenter is that when they were doing it, it was a specialty skill. Not everybody knew or had the access or the luxury of saying, I can just take a camera out of my pocket, shoot a movie today, put it on YouTube for free, and if I'm lucky and people think it's interesting, it explodes. They didn't have that. So to them, their ability to make a film, which at the time, if you think now, putting it in their shoes, is such a monumental task. They're dealing with real celluloid film, real hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment just on an independent project. It's completely night and day. They had to be very litigious, and they had to do it very well. I think part of the new future of filmmaking, and then I promise we'll stop talking about this after Luke gets his piece, is I think that you're also going to have to learn how to market yourself. I think marketing and making movies and you being the head of your own marketing team is going to be one and the same eventually. I think it's going to really come down to that.
And you're actually looking at this consolidation, I feel like, when we talk about, well, let's look at Curry Barker again, where also, Dylan's talking about access to a camera. Let's talk about an access to an audience, where you can't tell me looking at Milk and Cereal that Shudder wouldn't have their mouth watering to have had Milk and Cereal being exclusive to their channel. That's the reason really Curry Barker got a lot of eyes on him, because, I wasn't familiar with his comedy channel or anything like that, but I was certainly aware of Milk and Cereal and discussion around it. So I think, having that access to the audience, like I said, it's already going to have a built-in audience. So it's like you can almost streamline everything where, people aren't going to film school. But you look at Obsession, like I say, Curry Barker has just got a great handle on human psychology. It hits you at your core, so it's like very interesting. I think Carpenter's been pretty outspoken about his foray in Hollywood and his distaste for certain things, so it's like and we all listen to the documentaries of Halloween, and it's like it started off in a few theaters, caught fire word of mouth, and then started going across the nation. You know, by the next few years, it was being played in all these different theaters. But now it's like, hey, Curry Barker uploaded Milk and Cereal to YouTube for $800, and it was a talking point across the internet because he had an access to an audience. And I think that's really what's changing the game. Is like you can make a film that feels legit, especially if you do something like found footage, like Milk and Cereal, and you have an access to an audience. Where it's like Markiplier released his Iron Lung through YouTube, you know, afterwards. So it's like that's where you can. That's where its home is, and then him being able to do the actual Blu-rays. It's like we're really streamlining all the stuff to get talent out there. I think someone mentioned, you know, gatekeeping, where everything's kind of changed. That is really, really what is happening here, for better or worse, depending on how you look at it. I think, you know, it's great to get a lot of so many different creative voices out, whether it's a short film or it's a feature-length film.
This is also a great point. The future of filmmaking or movie making success is independence. People are exhausted with Hollywood, rehash, big budgets, celebrities, CG, and the bottom line. That is very true. I think in horror especially, I think audiences are, that's why horror has been successful lately, I think, is because audiences are very much like tired of just getting served a lot of the same stuff. I mean, I was somebody who was a Marvel boy to my core. Luke was there. He saw it all. I was going to every single premiere. Not premiere, but like, you know, the movie opens up on a Thursday night. I'm there with all my friends seeing it. And like that time has come to pass. And we've really seen how that was the future of everything. That was what Hollywood thought was going to be everything. And then suddenly people were just like, well, I'm kind of getting bored of this. And you know what's actually exciting? So I think the thing that also helps with this, and then we're done for real. We might have to do a separate video or stream, or maybe something on Patreon where we all just talk about this, because it's good stuff. I do like it. But like, I think overall, it's like we're getting to this point where the future is going to basically hinge on if you can make this yourself or if you can get people to do it. That's really what it is. And I think that's more interesting to people because they have somebody to root for. They have a voice that's not only, or a story that they're following that's not just the film. They're following the journey of making the film. Because I'll tell you what, you know what was exciting? You know what got me so excited about the movie Talk to Me before I even saw a fucking trailer? I was a subscriber to Raka Raka. They posted a video showing them at Sundance when their movie premiered and getting to talk about how A24 bought it. And like they told the whole story of it and how they made it. And they had all this exclusive behind the scenes footage, like an hour or something long video. And I was like, I'm a fan of this movie and I haven't even seen a fucking trailer. And it's like, that's what I think people like, is like, it's such a more intimate experience. It's like people like our audience, when they see something and hear us talk about it and make something and make a movie, the best experience is getting to say, damn, like I got to go on this journey with them, or I got to watch this journey happen and I'm right there with it. I'm celebrating it because we all love it. Look at us. We all get giddy and excited when we see Obsession breaking box office numbers, Backrooms, and of course Iron Lung and all these other ones. We get excited because it's all stuff we're passionate about.
And I'll say 100% I agree with that, because, and I'll say, you know, I didn't mind Disclosure Day. I thought it's a fine film. It's a Steven Spielberg type of film. And of course, I grew up with things like Jurassic Park and E.T. And I do like going back to revisit those films. They're part of my childhood. But I think seeing such a big film and knowing it's Spielberg, there's a bit of a disconnect for me where it's like, I enjoy some of his films, but he's not my guy. You know what I mean? But it's like going into something like Backrooms, Obsession, or Iron Lung. It's like I dabble in what they've all done. You know, it's not like a regularity for me, but I know what they've done and what they can do. And I felt like I had some skin in the game. I'm like, yeah, this is my group. This is my wolf pack of sorts, where it's like, you know, I have some stake here that I want to see the success, because I know the potential's there. So I feel like, you know, there is a bit of a more personal journey for the audience, you know, with some of these films. And I think we just want to see them succeed. and it's even better that they're quality films, you know, where it's like,
Yeah,
man, they have a great handle on what they can do, and we see the potential, and then we're seeing it, actually experiencing it as it's unfolding on film. It's something that it just it warms your heart a little bit. Not to get too sentimental, but it's like it's just a different experience than what
it does feel good.
you go to see these big films that there's just a disconnect where it's like, yeah, it's familiar Hollywood name, but that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, and I think yeah, that's hopefully where we're going with it. I'd like to see it. I think the only reason this might warrant a further discussion later is because one thing you said that did flash a nightmare future in my brain real quick was when you talked about studios honing in on that. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, oh my God, studios are going to immediately, not saying they would go to this person specifically, but they're going to go to like Logan Paul's and all these other people and be like, hey, you got an audience, we'll fund a movie, let's make it. They're not going to go to the people who have like, 200,000 followers who actually have an audience of like really great, you know, analog horror stuff. It's like, unless people push that themselves and they get the attention themselves, like Obsession and Backrooms did, it's not going to happen, bro. It's studios are going to go right for the biggest names. It's like, son, who are you watching right now on Twitch? This Hassan Piker is going to make the next horror film, and it's going to be like, what? Like, that makes no sense. You know what I mean? So there it is. There it is.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think that if we're talking about Paul brothers, I think they've kind of. I don't know if they're interested in filmmaking, but I feel like they're a little too big to even dabble in the
They were
Hollywood
just the
space.
first thing that I
Yeah,
thought
no,
of.
yeah.
So
But it's like in I don't know that other name you mentioned, Hassan Piker. But I'm not.
he's like I think he's like a big political Twitch guy.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I know that, but it's like it's he's just probably, he was and again the first like
No, I
Twitch
understand.
streamer
I
I could think.
understand.
Yeah.
I think what an interesting discussion that warrants, because I've seen this meme pop up, is that um Curry Barker's, he does the one skit with the Pringles can. And it's like the text above the meme is, "This is the guy that made Obsession." You know what I mean? Where it's like people from the outside looking in would be like, "What the hell? This guy just made an interesting horror movie." So it could also open up an avenue of unfiltered potential that we don't even know, that like Raka making Talk to Me. It's like I think it opens up an interesting discussion of maybe there's some untapped potential out there that do comedy and can transition well into horror. I don't know, but the space is definitely in an interesting transition right now.
Absolutely. Damn. So when Adrian's not here, we just get into deep philosophical conversations about box office trends, horror. It's great, guys. I love all of you. Thank you for sticking with us through all of this. And so many great comments, so many great things to throw in there. Yeah, I think overall, it's pretty good. And then yeah, I agree, Gracie. That was flashing through my mind as well. I almost said Shane Dawson, because that's exactly what they tried to do, was basically be like, damn, people like YouTube people, give them a movie, and then they just make terrible schlock. It's awful. But before we get spinning into that, why don't we hop into some of the news, because there's actually stories I'd really like to talk about, and I'd really like to hear some thoughts from the old Lukester on. So, sir, why don't you take us away with the first story?
Do you have a preference on what we start with before?
Can we start with the one involving the great? It's not a fish; it's a mammal. But
Yes,
the big thing in the water,
I suppose that's where we're
and
going
the
to
crackhead from
request,
Weapons.
Dylan. Let's hit it. The odds of being swallowed alive by a whale may be low, but the first teaser for Whalefall makes that nightmare feel terrifyingly real. Based on the acclaimed novel, the film follows a young diver trapped inside a massive sperm whale with only an hour of oxygen left and no obvious way out. Directed by Brian Duffield, the movie appears to blend intense survival horror with a deeply personal story about grief, loss, and family. The teaser alone has already sparked conversations thanks to one of the most claustrophobic and anxiety-inducing setups we've seen in years, with Austin Abrams leading the cast and a premise that taps into some of humanity's most primal fears. Expectations are rising fast. Could Whalefall become the next great survival horror film, or is it unbelievable premise too much for an audience to fully buy into?
Well, if you watched my video, you guys know I'm very excited about this. So Luke, why don't you start us off here? What did you think of the trailer?
Straight garbage, straight shit, Dylan. I cannot buy into it. No suspension of disbelief on this one. I will say across the board, you failed your assignment with that video.
Okay. All right.
But realistically, I'm intrigued. I like the trailer for this one. I don't know how plausible this is. Dylan, have you done research on how plausible this is? I know there was a couple comments, but it's like my suspension for disbelief is like, hey man, I believe dolls can come alive and start killing people. So I'm not too much of a hard sell. I just didn't know, is this believable to be stuck in sperm whale's stomach? Is there oxygen? I don't know.
It's never happened. So as far as we know, nobody has ever on human record. Nobody's ever actually been swallowed by a whale. The big thing is like you would have to get past basically their gag reflex, which we see in the trailer as they get sucked in. And that's the big thing, that they get stuck. You get stuck in their throat theoretically, and they would have to cough you up basically. But the book's justification, I actually think, and the way they describe it in the book, and again, I have been assured from a couple people who've seen more of this footage from CinemaCon. I was watching some coverage for it a while ago, that there is a lot more to this scene. They just really made an abridged version for the trailer, which makes sense. And one of the things that you'll get here, and I will just say it outright, is that the reason this works for me is because the squid is what pulls Jay into the whale. The whale is trying to reject them, but he doesn't he pulls in the squid, which is natural. The squid is wrapped around Jay's legs and torso, and he's trying to get free, but the whale is also throwing it around. He's disoriented. He's trying to keep his mask on. It's a lot going on. And the squid actually yanks him down the whale's throat. So, and mind you, again, I said this in the video, this whole event in the book only takes place within like an hour. So it's not a lot of time that this is. So people like to think, man, this is going to be a whole movie where it's like this. And it's like, no, in all reality, if it did happen, we get from point A to, point Z, whatever, pretty quickly. So,
and one of the references you brought up in a discussion we had, I don't know if it was prior to you recording that or right afterward, we had talked about this and you kind of compared it to the Ryan Reynolds film Buried. And I feel like that's what we're going to get here, where it's not going to be like too much movement. It's going to kind of just be one character pretty much stuck and reflecting on certain things and kind of maybe going elsewhere in his brain that are going to kind of move our settings. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I'm certainly going to check out the book prior to this. It does have my intrigue, but I feel like it's going to be one of those one setting pretty heavily type deals. And I'm okay with that because it's like, I enjoy the film Buried. I think it's done very well, and it shows the expansion you could really do in one setting. But if you have a lot of tension and just interesting dialogue and great acting, you could really compile a very interesting horror story. And I think this has the chops to do that. I like that Brian Duffield is attached to this. He did that alien film, No One Will Save You, I think is, if I get it right. And, I enjoyed that one quite a bit. I talked about it in our Disclosure Day review that aliens are never really my subgenre when it comes to horror or science fiction. It has to have something. It has to offer something interesting. And I think No One Will Save You had an interesting element to it that we don't see that often. And I bought into a lot of the alien horror of it. And he wrote Love and Monsters, which is personally one of my favorite films. I think it's got, a great creature feature aspect to it. It feels like a great adventure kind of film. So I'm excited that he's tackling this. I think we're going to get some great storytelling and certainly some great visuals.
Agreed. And I like Penelope's rationale here because this is exactly, when I made this video, I was definitely anticipating people being like, oh, like, I don't know, this movie sounds goofy or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like, I did not think that I would be like fighting for my life in these comments with people being like, well, you can't actually get swallowed by a whale. It's like, guys, that the movie has to happen. Like, this is the plot. This is what they're offering. This is what you're signing up for. That's all I'm saying. Like, he's gonna get swallowed. We're gonna see what happens, and it's like, that's cool. But the other piece of this that's I do want to touch on that I'm real excited that they didn't really leave out. Well, obviously they want to try to get people into the movie, which you need to with all this cool whale shit. But the part that I think is really going to catch people off guard here, and why I think the casting to this is just pitch perfect. Like, I was listening to this book while I was at work, just on an audio book, just listening to it while I'm working, just, you know, zoning out for 8 hours a day. And it's not a very long book. I think it's like 11 hours if you read it or listen to it. So it's like I had it done in like 2 days. And it was one of those things to me, man, where it's like the emotional story is so core and so important to this between the father and the son and kind of their twisted, awful relationship, that like the fact that they have Josh Brolin playing the father is just like chef's kiss. You couldn't get better. Austin Abrams, I mean, the dude's hungry right now. Weapons, he's got Resident Evil just around the same time as this. So like, if this hits as well, boy's going to be in some big movies here real soon if he hasn't already been secretly cast in a lot of stuff. Because like, good Lord, man, he's got the chops. I think he can do it.
But, you know, in looking at that, I'll say the casting here gives me even more confidence in this premise, because when you look, there are so many films that Dylan and I have watched. There was one that I think was took place primarily in a car. I can't remember the title of it. Had to do with Wendigo. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Cold Meat.
There we go. And didn't like that film very much.
Nope.
It's, you know, you become very aware when you're in a small setting like that on how much emphasis the significance of great acting is. Because if you're aware of it, you're going to cast great actors that can create compelling tension, just a compelling relationship that can keep you glued to the screen. And I think Austin Abrams, and I think certainly we've seen it from Josh Brolin's range, that they can easily do that. I think this could be, and Dylan, since I haven't read the book, I don't know, tell me if I'm off base here, but something like we had just seen a few months ago, Exit 8, where it's like primarily one location, but they find interesting ways to take you elsewhere and kind of establish relationships. And I think maybe that's what we're going to see here, because it's like they showed glimpses, and I'm assuming we might be starting off pretty much with our Austin Abrams character doing the dive, and then maybe we're going to get right into the situation. I don't think we're going to waste too much time in terms of the actual premise itself. So I feel like we're going to be in one location, and our main character is going to do a lot of reflecting on his relationships and life and things like that, which might take us elsewhere in certain instances that mix things up. But it's like, it's very much does feel like buried, but in whale of a stomach.
It's so much worse.
Whale.
It's so much worse. It's I can promise you it's so much worse. I was corrected in the comments too. I did forget the detail. It is 4 stomachs. All of them have different functions. And it's just read the book. You're gonna love it. Like, it's I kept hinting at it, and I think I told you off air about the beaks.
Yes.
Oh God, it's so bad, dude. It's so bad. Like, there's so many things in there that, like, the writer was so smart. Like, I definitely would love to interview him if possible, because like he just like had this idea and was kind of coming to it, and then was just like, you know what? Like, I'm kind of like liking this. What else is weird about whales? What's some cool stuff that like a lot of people don't know? And he found out all kinds of horrible things about how they digest food and how they do things and all that. And yeah, dude, it's a lot. Austin Abrams' character is going to go through a lot. And if they do it right, yes, you're correct. The film will basically start with a short introduction and the dive. And then we'll get into the situation. And primarily the way I would do this is how they do it in the book would be flashbacks basically between moments of terror, like basically life flashing before his eyes in a lot of ways, because like he'll have a moment where something's happening, he's basically at death's door, and then we do a chapter where we talk about a specific moment in time that's coming back to him, and then we jump back to him actually being able to somewhat get a little bit further, survive, and then, you know, so on and so forth. So it's really cool. I like it. And there's elements that get really cosmic horror like towards the end, just from like a psychological perspective. That's really, really great. Like, I think this movie has the potential to be not only like a really solid, terrifying survival thriller, but also just a very, very heartfelt and deep movie about like just fathers and sons, and the damage that we do unintentionally to our own children, growing up, and maybe can't reconcile with how to deal with that when you realize too late. Yeah, it's good stuff. Hits you in the core. It's good stuff.
And that's what I figure this film's going to be pretty heavy on emotion, just because of the subject matter and the relationships that we're dealing with. So I'm definitely intrigued by this one. I don't know necessarily if it's like, it certainly wasn't on my bingo card to say this is one of my most anticipated of the year. I know the next few months are going to be heavily stacked, but this one could be very surprising, welcome surprise to me, I think, in terms of the quality of the film. At least I hope so, because what we've, and I was just thinking about this, Dylan. We still have Hungry that, hasn't even been released to the masses yet, because we did that review so long ago. But it's like, we have like the hippo horror aspect of it. We've talked about a lot of shark films, very terrible ones lately, but I love that we're getting this survival horror with a whale, which again, it's no fault of the whale at all for following Austin Abrams. So I like that aspect of it as well. Feels like it's certainly a variety of survival horror in these kind of animal films.
God, I want to spoil Chum so bad, because we didn't even get to touch on it. Does anybody care? That movie is so bad you should not watch it. It is AI slop, but I guess I'll give you 2 seconds if you want to pop out for a second. If you don't want the movie Chum spoiled for you, at least one small goofy ass element of it. All right, 3, 2, 1. When she's riding the fucking shark, like Jesus Christ, when she like hops off the boat and like gets on top, like, what is this movie, man? What the fuck is this movie? Like,
pure art.
Jesus, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, I really just like that one still baffles me. It feels like you talk about fever dream in your next list here. That's a true fever dream of a movie in a lot of ways.
Without question. That one is
thank you all. Thank you.
Total trash. Don't recommend. I wouldn't even give it the time of day. I don't even think you'd have fun watching it as in the lens of a horrible film, just because honestly, if I had known there was some AI trickery going on in that film, I wouldn't have even given it the time of day.
Luke, they did state there was no AI used.
I don't believe them.
That's what I'm saying, dude. It's like, it's tough.
They're all liars and cheats.
Yeah, it's like everybody got to see it now because it's out on streaming. It's like, oh, what the fuck? This is terrible. What is this one? I saw Stop That Train yesterday, which also apparently has AI gen in it. Then that sucks. Jeez. What is Stop That Train? I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't heard of it.
Oh, there's some good stuff in there. I know. Do we want to pimp out that review a little bit that we're going to have this week, so that way people know to look for it? Because I think these are the folks who I think are actually going to watch the review. So,
which one are you talking about?
The one from the Enya's Men director.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can talk about it if you want. You just want to like mention it? Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah. I'm pulling it up right now. So we're actually going to have a review out this week, folks, from the gentleman Mark Jenkins. He's got a new movie coming out called Rose of Nevada, which, if you guys haven't heard of it, it should be. It is coming to streaming, right? Or is it hitting small?
I think it might be released
theaters.
I think it's select theaters.
Okay, so I think we have it very early. But basically, if you've seen, I think
it comes out next week, I believe, on the next Friday.
Gotcha.
I thought, yeah, the 19th.
Oh, that's right, because you're right. I'm sorry, I was looking at the calendar here that Google presented, and I'm like, oh fuck, it's got it all wrong. But so this is the director who did. Is it called Envy's Men or?
I don't know if it's an Iceman. I'm not sure.
Iceman.
I don't know 100%.
Point is, it's a bit of a weird one, but this one sounds even weirder and more intriguing. But a mysterious boat returns to a village 30 years after vanishing. 2 men join its crew, hoping for better fortune. After one voyage, they find themselves transported back in time, mistaken for the original crew. And I can tell you from the trailer, this stars George McKay and Callum Turner, who it's like or as it Callum, I think. But point is, they've been popping up in a ton of stuff. But this seems really intriguing. It can go either way, but I did like his last film, so I think this one could be a really good kind of time chaos, independent thriller that we're kind of missing these days.
I think so as well. I think that's what I reached out to this one because I thought it could be interesting in terms of maybe what it could offer. I think we're going to be in for a unique experience, whether it's good or bad. But I think this one will be a fun watch. I have some high hopes for this one. I don't know necessarily if it'll deliver, but I have an expectation for this one. So I'm hoping we're going to just get a really unique story. I'm probably gonna watch this one tomorrow, and then we should have a review out by midweek. So definitely be on the lookout for that one, because I don't think this being very limited. I just pulled up like where it says showtimes and things. The earliest, it's a random theater in Cleveland right now, so I don't know if they.
That's what tripped me up. I saw that it was like July 10th. I'm like, that's a while, isn't it? Like a couple weeks.
So it's like this. We may get to this in terms of people covering this one or having availability to this one. Might get to it a little early, so we'll keep you posted. We'll certainly mention it on Sunday Scaries next week as well, since it'll be covered at the very beginning.
Yep. Yeah, we'll talk about it. It's definitely going to be one of those ones where I'm eager to check it out. It was definitely an intriguing trailer, and I just think the director's got some interesting insights. I hope he can keep it up. Again, he likes to do a lot of things on the water, and if you watched my other video about Whalefall and our previous discussion here, I like the sea. It's a very scary place. I don't want to be in the water. I respect it. I respect the ocean, but I will watch it from the safety of my own home. So that's what I'm talking about. So hell yeah. But sir, would you like to roll us into our next story there?
All righty, let's hop into just as all 7 seasons of Tales from the Crypt finally arrive on Shudder, horror fans have been given something completely unexpected. Makeup effects legend Greg Nicotero has unveiled a brand new version of the iconic Crypt Keeper alongside original voice actor John Kassir. On the surface, it could just be a fun tribute to one of horror television's most beloved characters, but fans aren't convinced it's that simple. With the franchise's long history of failed revival attempts and complicated rights issues, the timing of this reveal has sparked intense speculation about what might be happening behind the scenes. Is this new Crypt Keeper merely a nostalgic celebration of a horror classic, or could it be the first sign that Tales from the Crypt is finally preparing to rise from the dead?
Oh, golly, a gee willikers. I would like them to really bring this back. I thought HBO was going to do this. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When HBO Max got announced, I thought like within the first 3 months, within 90 days of this platform being announced, it was like, we're getting a reboot of Tales from the Crypt. We already had Creepshow going on Shudder, which was mildly successful. You know what I mean? Like it had an audience enough to keep it going for a few seasons. And, that's saying something. And I don't know, man. I think maybe we talked a little bit about it when we were selecting stories. I think it's safe to say, and maybe the audience should let us know here, that's probably a better gauge, is like, would you guys say that Tales from the Crypt is more well known than Creepshow? Just as like the Creepshow film versus the Tales from the Crypt series, is that more of a? I think do more people have an awareness of that? Do you think?
I think for me personally, Tales from the Crypt has to be more well known, because when you look at Creepshow, yeah, it came out on Shudder as a TV series, but we had Creepshow 1 and 2, and then I think 3 came out in the early 2000s or something. I can't remember exactly. I've never seen it, but it's like really we had those big films where that's what I think a lot of people referenced. And then when you look at something like Tales from the Crypt, I didn't watch Tales from the Crypt as a kid because it was on too late, but my dad watched it, so I remember that that very famous intro, Crypt Keeper popping up, doing his laugh, and I'd see all that stuff before before I went to bed. And you had this central character to just latch onto. I think the Crypt Keeper would pop up in so many different places in the 90s because it became pop culture to an extent. And with HBO being the vehicle it was on, you saw so many famous faces, pop up in different episodes, and directors tackle different episodes and things like that. So I think this was like, oh, I had Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps in the 90s, and then adults had Tales from the Crypt, it feels like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I love this. This is a great comment from Rob. When my dad was stealing cable back in the 90s, Tales from the Crypt was on our TV every weekend. I love
Rightfully
that.
so.
This is one of those things too, where I don't know if this is what he's referencing, but it's one and the same. If not, remember when like you'd get if you had cable or something, you get a free movie weekend or like a free pay-per-view weekend. And like people would take their VHS tapes and they would record the newer movies to have them and keep them. It's like I remember watching a bunch of those where it was like 2 movies on 1 tape kind of thing, and they were all written there. It was cool. I love
Austin Powers was one of my first exposures from HBO's free weekend. I was like, what the hell is this movie? And I love it.
Yeah, there was a lot of solid stuff. I remember the day, because that was the thing about them too, is like during those weekends, like they'd play a couple of new ones on a few of the channels, but then some of them would just be them playing straight bangers, just classics, because they just wanted people to subscribe. So
absolutely,
streaming has changed it. Everything is different. We got some people also agreeing here, saying yep for sure. Yep, yeah, it's great. But yeah, it's one of those where I guess, that's really, maybe there's the appeal there. I think that this would be something, again, I don't know why HBO has decided to really just kind of bastardize this viable rebootable platform or of a series, of a show, and it just doesn't, they don't want to do anything with it,
They say there's a pretty decent rights issue with everything.
That's
why Shudder had just recently got it on their platform. So I don't know, was it like Dark Castle or something like that? I don't know. Unfortunately, I didn't look up. I know there's always been an ongoing discussion with Tales from the Crypt, but I didn't look it up prior to this. But I know like Shudder, I thought was the first platform that was able to kind of get some sort of agreement. So I'm curious if they were the first ones, to actually get this thing ironed out and say, maybe we can get our hands on this property. In that aspect, I don't know, it's intriguing to think, like, I don't know how many people signed up for Shudder to watch Creepshow. And I know Tales from the Crypt is a bigger property, it feels like, but I don't know if that's going to get people to be like, I'm going to sign up for Shudder to see Tales from the Crypt, if that's where it goes. It feels like this should be on some other platform to be like, man, I can't believe this is back, so
it's going to probably be on AMC Plus.
Yeah.
And you notice how AMC Plus and Shudder are like interlinked.
Oh yeah. And I don't know how big that platform is. So it's like, again, I don't know what the exposure is going to look like, but I would certainly love to see Tales from the Crypt back. I think we sorely need some sort of anthology show regarding horror like that. Like I miss being able to turn on Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and later on being able to go through those episodes of Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, and just having a lot of fun with them, because there's a variety of horror there, and I would love to see that have some sort of resurgence to make it feel big, because that's what Tales from the Crypt felt like in the 90s. Was like it felt like a giant property that you don't get that often.
Absolutely. And now we get to play the fun game of, all right, season 1. Let's say we're going to go with 4 directors. Let's go, guys. Name some directors you want to see tackle this reinvention of Tales from the Crypt. And I'm going to go, I think, first here, because I think mine, I'm trying to find one that I think would actually be realistic, and I think would actually be something that I could see, like, potentially happening within like pretty soon. And I'm gonna go with actually I'm gonna go with, I can't go with that one. I'm gonna go with Eli Roth. I think Eli Roth has a good enough relationship over there that would probably be one of the names that gets pulled with it, where he gets to make something for Tales from the Crypt. I think his energy just works for that entirely. So he would definitely be somebody I think that's going to be on their short list.
I could certainly see Eli Roth doing something in that aspect. I was trying to look through some interesting directors that, I think it could be interesting just to get some sort of variety, because we've always seen him, and I know he's going to have another project on the horizon where we're going to kind of get to see him flex his muscles a little bit. But if this was going to be happening more recently, I think Damien Leone would be an interesting pick, just to be able to say, what kind of different story can you tell? Because if you're working within the parameters of, let's say, like cable television or that type of thing, you wouldn't be able to do the extensive splatter horror. So I'd love to see him just kind of tell an interesting horror story for an hour to see what else is in his brain besides Art the Clown.
Yep. Rob says Ari Aster, Lee Cronin. Nah, I say surprise me. I agree. I think they'd have to have maybe a mix of people who are unknowns and well-knowns, or like lesser knowns. But I was going to say Ari Aster was the one that I thought, because if you're going to get some kind of a tentpole thing, then I thought, I don't know if he would actually like necessarily work with that. I don't know what his whole, like time and everything looks like these days. Another one that I thought would be pretty plausible just because of the team would be Andy Muschietti. I think would probably be a name that would pop up there. He seems like somebody who would be willing to tackle for like a Tales from the Crypt episode.
He would be interesting, especially looking at Welcome to Derry, knowing what he can kind of do with just episodic horror, because I think that's going to be the big question here. Where didn't Jordan Peele? He just presented? I think, was it the Twilight Zone or something like that years ago? And I think that got canceled. I don't know, but it's just like making a compelling hour-long episode of horror. I think is going to be a true test of what you can really do. I think maybe. I'd like to see Damien McCarthy tackle something again, just being an episodic hour. Yeah. I think that would be see what he could cook up. Especially, we know him with a lot of paranormal things, and kind of adding in some extra human elements to his horror. I think it could be interesting to see what kind of off the wall horror he would do for just an hour long episode. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with since you did Damien McCarthy, I think another great one would be Sean Byrne. Would be cool to see. I don't know if they'd actually pick him, but I'd like to see him. And we talked about him earlier, but I'd love to see the Raka Raka duo maybe come over and do an episode. That'd be a fun one.
Yeah,
I think that's a good one, Penelope.
I think, and Penelope's got the right idea, because I was just thinking, and unfortunately I haven't seen the Boulet brothers. They had that the Christmas special.
We should maybe do the Patreon thing this Christmas for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Kayla Cooper had done something there. And I think like David Desmalchin, getting his take on an hour-long episode, because I know he had done something there as well. But like also looking at like Kayla Cooper, who's primarily a writer, but I love to see her vision just through the lens as well as a writing perspective. I think kind of giving intriguing horror writers the platform to direct your own episode, and to say, maybe there's some undiscovered talent out there that has just been writing or hasn't had a chance to get behind the lens and show their chops, and see what we can do with those hour-long episodes that leave a lasting impression.
I'd love to see Kayla Cooper do something like this. Yeah, that'd be somebody who would definitely work for Tales from the Crypt. I mean, because she wrote at least the first couple drafts, or at least the first Megan movie was mostly her. So
yeah, and she worked on Malignant.
Yeah, so both of those perfect balancing act there. I know Malignant, I can probably say, is a little bit of James Wan influence there, because that's his humor. He'd be another one, obviously. I think would be a nice big first name for the first few episodes. Big one to draw people in. A safer name for them.
Let's see if we can talk John Carpenter into an episode.
Hell yeah. I liked Chris Nash. What Gracie said here. Definitely would do a solid job. Oh,
Oh, good.
Violet, you
That's
son of a
honestly
gun.
probably go look through some of the VHS
Yeah.
directors and say, hey, because, and that's the great thing. VHS has done phenomenal things for the horror space, but to even have a more streamlined, more current kind of Tales from the Crypt coming out, you know, 8 episodes every year and having those directors' voices come out, you know, a bigger variety, more frequent, and seeing what kind of talent is out there, giving those opportunities. I think that's one of the big things when circling back to, like, you know, Curry Barker and um Kane Parsons and them getting their shot. I think, you know, having something that is a long-standing television show that is based in horror will give those voices a chance. Because you look at oh, what was that thing? Is it Project Zero or what is it? Is that what I'm thinking of? Where they had it was Project, I forget what it was called, but we were talking about analog horror a few weeks ago, and they had the Candle Cove and all that stuff. Where it's like that was a horror based TV show, I believe. I haven't watched
Channel
it.
Zero. That's what
Channel
you're. Yeah.
Zero, thank you.
Channel
There it is.
Zero. Hmm. Yeah. I kept thinking creepypasta names real quick. But Zin popping in here. Can I vote Dylan and Luke direct Tales from the Crypts? Hello, by the way. I honestly thought you guys would rock working on set. Well, thank you, Zin. We
I
appreciate your
appreciate
love
that.
and support as always. Hell yeah, we would love to do a Tales from the Crypt episode. I mean, I think like if we had that property and just knew we were working under it, and like it would be one of those things like it would literally be a life opportunity, like a life-changing opportunity of just like, even if that was the only thing we got to do, I'd love to take part in this because I love Tales from the Crypt. I admittedly have never seen the entire series. I've only seen like a chunk of the episodes, but it's one of those things like all of you guys. Again, we were just talking about it. HBO Free Weekends, Chiller is another channel I had back in the day. Even AMC Fear Fest would sometimes play those during those times. So anytime it would pop up, I'd always throw it on, especially if I saw the Crypt Keeper. And if it was a more interesting episode, it would keep my attention. If it was one that was a little bit more serious, I'd usually check out. But it's a big part of just like some of the, I would say, the garnishes of my childhood when it comes to monsters and horror and media.
It's another property that I feel like is built into a lot of horror fans' DNA as they grew up. Because whether you watched it as a kid, I don't think you can escape it as an adult. It's something that I think a lot of people go back to and check out. Because I remember when the episodes were, I think, just on YouTube, and I just had like a marathon of watching one after another and having those glimpses of being like, I remember this as a kid, as my dad watching it on HBO. And it's like, you know, you have the actual movies themselves as well. And
Yeah.
Crypt Keeper was so iconic. It melded into pop culture at the time. And yeah, I mean, like if we ever got a chance to tell a story in this world, it would be so much fun because it is so expansive. You know, you kind of hit the reset button on every episode for the most part, and it tackles something different. So I'd be down. Although my tenure would only last probably a day because I would certainly steal the Crypt Keeper prop and never be heard from again.
Yeah, I was definitely made the bad call of not the bad call, but like irresponsible call this past year of when I went into a Spirit Halloween. I said I wasn't going to get anything when it was 50% off, but the one we went into just happened to have it. It's back there. I'm not gonna I'm all tied up in chargers right under me, but I got the Crypt Keeper bust that they had there with him in the book and the thing. You used to be able to see it in my background, but now it's on a lower shelf. But it's just one of those things where it's like I see something like that, to own a piece that is the Crypt Keeper, just the icon himself, is just so cool. We've talked about it. He'd be an amazing NECA figure if they did an Ultimates line with like a chair, a table, everything. It's just like you could have him doing that. But if you want some insight, I don't think I'd have to twist Luke's arm, and I think they'd want to do this. But you guys know my heart, my love for the Crypt Keeper or Tales from the Crypt is always going to go to the Christmas episode of All Through the House. And I don't think I have to twist Luke's arm to do a modern rendition of that, because I do have an idea that I think would be quite fun. to update that version of the story a little bit. And also, it's one that was in the comics, the original EC comics. So it's one of those ones where it's like it's almost generational at this point. That if they rebooted the show, we would have to get an episode like that.
I'm totally down to do any sort of holiday horror. It's like, and that's the beauty of that. Depending on when it releases, you get so many elements of you could, especially if you released it in like the fall months, where it's like, hey, you could tackle Halloween, you could tackle Thanksgiving, you could tackle Christmas, all within one season, which would be a lot of fun. Because hey, there's never a bad time for holiday horror.
That's actually a great one, Jackie. That he would be somebody I think would actually sell in like a short form thing. I think he could do a good job with this because he would do a great dark comedy with it. And you know, obviously Tales from the Crypt, there's a lot of that. And yes, of course, the thing that inspired Terrifier 3, absolutely. I mean, like it's like we're not gonna go clown with at least the idea I'm pitching, but it would be very much you know, Santa is gonna be wielding an axe, going ham on some people, and it's going to be a lot of great fun. But that's the thing, it's like there's so many great episodes of the show that you can call back to, of so many varying different stories, qualities, some that are a little bit more like psychological, some that are very much just monsters and craziness. So it's like it's really great, and I hope this wasn't just a tease. I think if anything, this may have been them testing the waters a little bit to see, well, what's the buzz about this, would people get excited? And we had to do what we do. We had to get it out to the ether and at least get it in the algorithm stimulated, so that way, hopefully, whoever's looking at the spreadsheets over there at Shudder, AMC, and IFC is like, well, the Splattercast boys and everybody in the comments said go for it, so we're going to green light it, because we all know that's how this works. So,
without question.
Yeah. Oh my God, a zombie-themed Easter movie would be freaking dope. That'd be hilarious. It makes me think of I know it's not Easter, but Dead Snow 2. When they go into the town, it's like such a crazy ass movie.
Hey, we need more Easter horror. We have like Critters 2 in, is that pretty much it that I can think of for this?
Yeah, Critters 2. I mean, like there's the anthology that has like Kevin Smith and a bunch of other people from the early 2000s, has that one Easter one, and it's pretty good. But other than that, yeah, I don't really know a lot of Easter movies. So pretty crazy. But alrighty, sir, would you like to move us into the next story?
Absolutely, I can. Let's see here. Well, let's talk about a little Hereditary. 8 years after Hereditary changed modern horror forever, Ari Aster has revealed that he already wrote a prequel exploring the world behind one of the genre's most disturbing films. While details remain scarce, the announcement immediately raises questions about whether we'll finally learn more about Paimon, the cult, and the dark forces lurking beneath the original story. Hereditary has only grown in reputation since its release, with many fans now considering it one of the defining horror films of the 21st century. But after all these years, is there really more story left to tell? Or does the mystery surrounding Hereditary work better when some questions remain unanswered?
I don't know. I think this to me seems like if Ari Aster was going to do this to me would be something that like he would do 20, 30 years from now when he's like in his twilight years and is like, I'm going to do a movie that is loosely related to Hereditary. And it's going to be marketed to all hell as the final big follow-up to Hereditary. And then it's, you know, a loose prequel maybe. I don't know. I think the guy's got so many weird, interesting stories to tell, clearly. I mean, I've enjoyed everything he's done. I mean, I adore Midsummer. I think that's my favorite still. But even his most recent one that we went and saw, what was that one? Eddington,
yeah.
Excellent movie. It's very different in the style of him. A lot of messages, a lot of great stuff there. But and I even adore Beau is Afraid, and I know I'm one of very few people. I think it's just me and Evan, and that might be it. So there we go.
The whole two of you, the whole lot.
Because you still haven't seen that, have you?
No, I haven't seen it at all.
A watch.
I've been meaning to, but yeah, it was. I didn't go to the theater when you went, and I know it's an undertaking of a film, so it's on my watch list. I'll get around to it eventually. But you know, this one, I'm not against it. It does surprise me that Ari Aster has supposedly already written an entire script for a prequel, rather than just kind of having some general ideas. So I'm curious if he's hotter on the project than what it does seem, because hey man, it takes a minute to actually write a full-on screenplay, especially with some lore that you've already established and playing within the parameters. I'm curious if that idea was already in his head prior to uh, filming Hereditary and saying maybe if this hits, we could always revisit something here, or it just kind of came about naturally after thinking on, you know, the success of the first one. I think if you're going to do a prequel, don't do it related to really any of the characters in the first. You know, you can't have that direct link. If this is going to happen, maybe it's like decades and decades and decades prior to that, or just a cult in general, or maybe a completely different instance, or we're learning kind of how this cult functions or really how it came to be. I could see this being some sort of period piece would be interesting, and how this cult came to be. I think it leaves so much room to play because we don't really know too much about Payman in the cult to begin with. So it's like, where could the story go? I think it opens up more possibility. And I have confidence in enough in Ari Aster to say he wouldn't ruin the mystique of Hereditary and what has established there. Because I don't think he's about showing all his cards. If anything, I think he'd be more about confusing his audience even more so with, you know, what the actual lore is behind it and how everything came to be.
Yeah, I have to agree with you mostly. I have a little bit of a caveat to what you said, but I also agree with Gracie's sentiments here, where it's intriguing, but it's not needed at all. It's like I could give or take this, you know what I mean? Like I would be cool to see him do it, especially if it's something that he really wants to pursue. But at the same time, it's like I'm kind of just cool with him doing weird stories, you know, and keep doing his thing where it's like some of it's horror, some of it's a little bit more like satirical. Like he's got a very interesting voice, and it's like I don't want him to just get, you know, pigeonholed into the Hereditary guy, because there's a part of me that also thinks very cynically that A24 is like, okay, we gave you 2 movies, one of them did okay, the other one bombed completely. You got to give us another Hereditary. Let's go, bud. Come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's there because, like, I think they were happy with Midsummer, but Midsummer is not like a huge, like, takeoff from Hereditary. They're both dealing with cults, very different style, but, you know, it's still the same horror, like, adjacent subject matter. And I think the only thing that I would disagree with you on, and I don't know if you meant this far back, but I would like to see if there's any character that you do this with, and maybe it's just because I just rewatched The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. Just do Grandma. She's dead at the start of the story. Let's see her as a young woman getting coaxed into joining this cult. Maybe she doesn't realize what she's getting into until it's too late. Very First Omen-esque stuff there, maybe, you know, kind of doesn't have to be super religious, but you know what I mean? Like follow Grandma, because that's the only character that's talked about the entire movie that we never meet.
You know, and you know, I thought about that, and for me, it's too much of a safe play. I think it's like that feels like the given. What the groundwork that you lay if you're going to do a prequel at the beginning of Hereditary, where do you go with it? It's Grandma, because we haven't met her, and she's an introduced character, even though we don't actually see her function really. So it's like, for me, that was too much of a safe play. It's like, I would love almost an offshoot. Like, again, one of those things I'd be fine with if it's like, she's not our main character, but in some fashion comes into play by the end of it. And it's like, oh yeah, we get her for like 15 minutes.
Like we get the acknowledgement, you know what I mean? Maybe the name drop as she's like in the background. So yeah, because, that's fine.
You know, in like, the beauty of I think Hereditary is that movie plays like even better on rewatches because you pick up so much more. And I think you'd have that same with the prequel, where it's like you rewatch and you're like, oh yeah, he was telling me this, or you know, he was hinting at that, and then it all makes sense by the end of it. And it's like he was alluding to even more things than what we traditionally got. And then it's like, and then introduction to her Grandma as a young woman in the last 10 minutes makes even more sense to us. So I think Ari Aster functions on a very high level of, you know, creativity and screenwriting and just being behind the lens, where it's like, I think his career thus far right now having something like Eddington, and that did have a pretty decent discussion around it. I think I think he's kind of past being pigeonholed as the Hereditary guy. I think
I hope
honestly,
so.
I think like if he wants to go back to Hereditary, it's not of necessity. I feel like it's kind of like he has proved he has no shortage of telling interesting stories. So even if he does dabble back into Hereditary, I honestly feel like he's going to make a conscious decision to say, I don't want to tell the same story. I don't want to use the same devices. I want this to be in the world. I already established some sort of lore, but I'm going back because there's something else I need to do in this universe.
Yeah, and I think like that's why my first gut instinct would be this is his Twilight years film, even if it's not that far in the future. It's like that's what I would think he would do. You know what I mean? It just doesn't strike me. It's like he's a very rare filmmaker. We don't have many of them like this anymore, and it's hard to really find people like this. I think anymore, because everybody either goes into big studio projects and gets caught up in the Marvel stuff or the Star Wars stuff or whatever, and then or they they have to kind of again carve their own path. But like he's somebody who I think is flirting with the same club. Okay, see, Rob is already ahead of me. Eggers is one of them as well, where it's like they are so specific. They have such a pedigree that is assigned. They have basically made themselves the brand. It is not, I'm excited to see whatever Ari Aster's next movie title insert here is. I'm excited to see the next Ari Aster movie. I'm excited to see the next Robert Eggers movie. They're in the same camp as like Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg, but like very on a lighter scale, I would say right now. They're like just under that, as to where names like that have been established. They can make movies, they can move mountains in Hollywood, Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg. They can't do that, but they can move mountains at A24, Focus Features, Neon, all these other like mid-range to lower level things. They can do that there. So that's what I think they have, that maybe we don't really consider as much anymore when it comes to somebody like an Ari Aster. It's like, I think they've got a lot of good credit built up with those studios that they're willing to gamble on them. And that's rare.
I think so as well, because like I said, Ari Aster has a very dramatically different types of films, but they all kind of have the Ari Asterness to it, that you kind of expect when the storytelling. Same thing with Robert Eggers. They have very specific voices when it comes to storytelling. So I think they have built up enough goodwill, because whenever you start hearing about a Robert Eggers film or an Ari Aster film, it's like, yeah, I'm going to go see it because that's the director that's doing it. I think we've kind of maybe passed over this whole, just being into a certain genre where it's like, hey, it's a vampire movie, I'm going to go see it. It's like, I'm not sold on vampires, but it's just like, if it looks like a good vampire movie, sure. But if it's a bad vampire movie, no, probably not, So it's like, it really does kind of go down to the director name value nowadays, because that's more of the expectations. A lot of people are, sorry to go back to Curry Barker, but a lot of people are going to go in the theater for anything but Ghosts based on Obsession and it being the next Curry Barker film.
Yeah. And I think it's always, director names have always been a thing. It's always been, but it's like, yeah, it's very different nowadays too, because like you said, with the followings and the way people can engage with filmmakers now, it is a very different beast than it was. So it's like, it's hard for me to even like have that conversation of like Eggers and Aster as those names, because we're living in very different times where it's like, yeah, maybe Curry Barker, if this next movie takes off, is he somebody who can move mountains just because he proved followings? Is Markiplier are going to have people banging down the door? I don't know. It's interesting. But hey, I love that we are talking in the same stream about all these eras, and we're talking about motherfucking Ari Aster still making movies and just flirting with the idea of, I might make a Hereditary prequel, and all of us are just sitting here like, what the fuck is that going to be, man? And it's like, for all the good, all the bad, I'm just happy that it's happening. I'm happy that we're still here with him. I like that. It's cool.
It's definitely an interesting time. Like we talk about the different genres in horror. We have so many developments. I think it's going to be an interesting time when we're decades removed from 2026, and we reflect on this period of where we started with Saw, Hostel, all those kind of splattery torture porn-esque films, going through elevated horror, going through splatter horror, going through what could be a YouTuber horror, and so on and so forth. How many different transitions into the horror space we've had, because it's like, we look at films in different eras. We talked about Hatchet coming out in the mid 2000s and kind of being the blueprint for Art the Clown in Terrifier. And it's like, who knew those comparisons were going to be made? But we certainly are feeling a Terrifier 2 effect in cinema. It's like, so it's like we've witnessed so many different transitions, horror icons, and just creatives in general, and they're all functioning right now in the same space. We're talking about seeing Corey Barker's Obsession and Kane Parsons' Backrooms, and then we just saw Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day this week,
Yeah, that's true. And it's like they're all of varying different qualities, degrees, and it just seems like reactions and budgets. Absolutely. Budgets are all over the place right now. Like, so many things are performing at various different levels. But again, even Rob and everybody has said it in the comments. I think it's pretty unanimous with everybody we talk to, that like, hey, if the writing is solid and everything is like a good story is being told, that's what's going to win out every time. And I think the thing that sucks is, like, it's easy to say that. It's so hard to know if you got one, because sometimes you get so attached to stuff and you don't realize, like, is this working, until you're already so late into a project and you see it on screen and you're like, fuck, like, I don't think this works like how I wanted it to, And that's the gamble. It's the great gamble of filmmaking. It's why it's such a risky business. And I think one of the things, just to really, again, kind of serendipitously tie up all of our conversations, we talked a little bit about the money making and how that's changing and everything. I think one of the things that is also going to be a factor here is it comes down to, I think, one of the best ways that it was put, like, in the channel I was watching earlier this week about it, was that there's going to come a time when everything is pretty much just going to be, again, algorithmic based, all this stuff, to where the only thing that's going to shine through every single time, whether the studios get a hold of this and start making all these streamers and all these YouTubers, filmmakers, just because they have a following, if that's the trend, the only thing that's ever going to really shine through is good storytelling and good filmmaking. So that's truly, if you stick to that, that's the easiest proven thing through and through, time and time again. So,
Correct. It's like, to go back to these films that are just doing big box office numbers. If the story behind Backrooms sucked, Kane Parsons wouldn't be talking about Backrooms 2. It's like that would not be a thing at all. So it's kind of like these surrounding stories. They were given a chance because of their following, not necessarily Curry Barker because he went out and did the film himself, but probably with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, things like that, certainly. But it's like, it's an interesting time because you can be given a shot, but the story has to produce. And it's like, no shade to Shelby Oaks, but I think the storytelling was different levels of storytelling, I guess, from Backrooms and Obsession. Shelby Oaks was a little more of a safe version of storytelling. It wasn't as abstract or had that creative flow that I think those two films had. So you really have to have an interesting narrative. Your name's going to get you in the door, but I think you really have to produce from the actual content itself. And yes, I would love Peter Jackson to come into the horror space here yet again, because Dead Alive is a maniac of a film, and I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, and I think he was just more or less being rhetorical and saying Peter Jackson did Dead Alive. Maybe he could surprise us with something, because that's probably the best example of this. Is it's like, dude made like masks out of his mother's oven for these movies, like, all these ones he started coming up with, and then made Lord of the Rings, the trilogy. It's like King Kong, like he meant to make these monumental giant films, and it all just started with that. So it's cool. I like it.
But and it's like, I think horror has so much more integrity now, where it's like, you could actually have bigger names come back to the horror space and not looked at as like you're going back to horror. It's like, horror is one of the things that's producing at the box office. It's making money for studios right now. So it's like, I feel like it's not off limits, for anyone to come into a horror film now.
Oh, geez. I agree, Gracie. Boots Riley doing one. Like, I still need to see. Um, oh God, what is the new one called?
I,
All
I'm,
About the Boosters or
yeah,
something.
something like that.
But like, I need to see. It's like I hear it's just absolute, just wildness. Because again, some people are like, this is the wackest movie I've ever seen, and some people are, this is the wackiest movie I've ever seen, and it's like, I love it. If it's anything like, Sorry to Bother You, which I imagine it's going to be, it's an absolutely insane flick. So, but him doing a horror movie, oh my fucking god! I love Boosters. Yes, second favorite of the year, very strong. Yes, I know you've been touting that one for a few weeks now. So the second I can get to watch it, I definitely will.
Just like looking at that, how many times do we say, and I know we're probably biased because we're discussing this on a horror channel and we see horror movies, but I don't think I'm that far off because our discussions are always, I want to see this person do a horror film. I don't really ever say I want to see this person do an action film or I want to see this person do a drama. Always, I
Yeah,
want to see this. I want to see this person's take on horror because it's such a lucrative space. It breeds creativity way more than a lot of other genres do. And I think that's why that's attractive to say, even though you're a bigger name, come on and do a horror film because it's probably going to resonate with an audience. And we want to see your take because it opens up the space and in what you can do with a story.
yep, yep. And I think that's one of the things that I it's why I think it works right now. It's why I think it's something that has been a constant for so many years now. Like since the pandemic, really, like it came back first, really in a big way. Horror movies started making the most money, and then it's been able to sustain. And we have things like Sinners and stuff come out. It's because like it's just I've been saying it, and I think the early years, like 2022, Dylan, when we started this, would say it a little bit less confidently, but I think I can say with full confidence that horror is one of those genres that can be, you can add a dash of horror into any other genre and make it work. And it's like you just have, because it's the same thing with comedy. Comedy can work in any genre, but you have to make it work. You have to work for it and find out where the ebbs and flows are. And that's why I think it's just timeless and why it's just going to continue to produce. We'll have ebbs and flows as usual, but I think horror movies will always be, no matter how far behind they get thrown back by whatever the next big trend is after Marvel and everything, whatever that ends up being, horror will still be there. Just because it's not breaking the headlines doesn't mean that it won't be breaking the box office. So
It's probably what the most versatile genre out there because when you talk about it, going back to Marvel, it's like, hey, we want to see a Marvel film, but darker. We want to see it with a horror tinge to it. So it's like, um, it's always a thing. I think a lot of fans are clamoring for. I think horror is forever going to be a communal experience. I think that's what you can really bank on. Where it's like you want to go to the theater, you want to feel scared, and you get to do it with a group of people that are experiencing the same thing that you are at that time, or you get to walk out of the theater and immediately text somebody about, "Hey, I just saw Obsession," or you get to talk about your experience or recommend it to somebody because it's like those are always going to be the biggest discussions. It's like I think there's some good action flicks out there and some good dramas and stuff, but forever, I think horror is always going to be that main talking point for so many people, especially in age groups now where it's like you grew up with Goosebumps. Are You Afraid of the Dark? That kind of in, introductory storytelling to the horror space. And now we kind of get to see those layers added to it. Again, as we talked about different subgenres of horror taking the main stage over throughout the difference in years, we get to see that creativity in storytelling. We get to tell those similar stories, but maybe through an elevated horror lens or a splatter horror lens, or maybe now a YouTuber horror lens. It's like it's very interesting the evolution of these stories.
very much, very much. And thank you, the Mysterious Drifter, for a $9.99 donation. If you have a message or anything you'd like to send, feel free. I don't know if that was an accident there, but if if not, we appreciate it. Thank you. I think it's part of the gimmick, though. I appreciate it. The
I like it.
mysterious drifter. I like it.
You gotta lean into the gimmick. Just drifting
love
by and very mysterious. We love it. Thank you so much, though. We really do appreciate it.
It's been fun. It's been good. But yeah, I agree. I think there's been a lot of great conversations had today about the all this stuff. And I mean, hey, it's all on our mind. I'm just glad I can geek out with, you know, all of you guys in here and Luke about this. And this is a job for us. This is cool. I like it. So it's like it's nice. It's very blessed. And let me see here. Yeah, some Brightburn talk in this. That's what I do want to revisit. It's been a while since I saw it. I did like it. I remember a lot of people were disappointed with it, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was
pretty good. I didn't really have an expectation going into it. I enjoyed the take on that one, though.
I don't know if people were expecting it to be as dark as it was. You know, I think they wanted a little bit more comedy, but they wanted dark. And I appreciated that. It's like, you know, go big or go
that was the aspect I appreciated out of it. I was hoping for that, obviously, and they delivered on that. So, yeah, definitely worth a revisit if you weren't sold on that one to begin with, because that one was a very impressive watch from what I remember.
Yeah. I did want to say one thing that has been popping up quite a bit in our comments that has surprised me from our last video. Because we talked about this. We did a standalone video, but it didn't get like much traction at all ages ago. And that is all the love we're seeing for eight-legged freaks in the comments has warmed my heart. So many people agree with us that they want a revisit to that. And that is so exciting. It'd be amazing if we're sitting here within 5 years and we're sitting here on the precipice of a reboot to that and just being able to point back to this moment and be like, it was there. The hunger is there for an eight-legged freaks revival.
I think, you know, maybe people were not aware. I don't think people at the time were aware of how well the story was told in that. And I'll say, I mentioned it, maybe, I don't know if it's in the video or not, but just the being exposed to Stranger Things and kind of reigniting that love for what made 80s films great. Because I think we forgot about it going through a lot of transitionary periods in horror and moving away from that 80s storytelling where it's like we build a small town, we build some likable characters, you have a town sheriff, and then you throw in a monster kind of element. I think Stranger Things certainly put a spotlight back onto what makes those films great, and I think people decided to go to revisit them. But I think it was kind of lost on them in the early 2000s and kind of just got filed away as this big monster movie that had some CGI in it, had David Arquette, and people really forgot about it. But I think now going back to it, it surprises you how heartfelt that story is and how sentimental it is to some of the 80s horror, because it really does build a great world. And then we also get those giant spiders. You know, it kind of gives you it checks a ton of boxes. And I think people forget about that until you go back and rewatch it, or it's lost on you when you first watched it. And then you go back and you're like, wait a minute, this is actually a pretty good film.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one of the things. My favorite part of that movie, I think, is just during the opening half when he goes to, is it Josiah or Joseph, who has all the spiders? Like, yeah. It's like so cool. I love shit like that. Like that's the stuff that gets my creature feature kid in me so excited, is when I see like, oh, it's a lab full of critters. You know, these bitches is all going to get loose and get all infected, and it's going to get crazy. Like, that's what I love. So, you know, it's good stuff. It's easy. It's not that hard. It's easy to make me happy. Let's see. It's a good time for TV horror. Yes. Windows Bay and From both killing it. I know people have been telling us to watch From forever. That's one that we'll have to maybe circle back to eventually. But then I have heard good things about Widow's Bay. So Widow's Bay. I hear that's a very, like, it's a funny horror show that's pretty good. So
yeah, I see that one pop up. People talk about it. I've been meaning to get around to From forever. I know people that watched that one and highly recommended it. It's like going in when there's already 2 seasons, and I'm like, oh god, I'd have to sit down and watch all those and power through them before I can even get to the later seasons of it. So it's like, it's one that I'll certainly get around to eventually. It's like, I wish I would have come to it when it was, you know, first on television, so it wouldn't be such an undertaking. But I love that we're getting some of those episodic horror things, because Welcome to Derry was a big surprise for us. We didn't really have
true.
high hopes
Expectations
going
were
into it.
low for
Yeah.
that. It
And
felt
then
like a reach.
yes, it felt like there wasn't really that much of a story to tell. We were just going to rehash a bunch of stuff, but they found their rhythm,
And
and
it's
they gave us some really intriguing lore that we had only heard about, and now we visually had gotten to see. And I'm excited to see the direction of season 2 on that one. So it's like, I think TV horror is slightly underrated, and I'm hoping we get some more series coming out that really prove its worth in the series space.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think we will. I think there's more excitement, more stuff on the horizon. So we just got to see other platforms kind of start to embrace it more that aren't just the smaller ones. Because, like, again, they're already fighting an uphill battle. So we just need to see some more movement from that. So, because again, we also have to remember we did just have Alien not too long ago, just a couple months back. Like that was late last year. So, that's Alien Earth was a big one. Yep. I think. All in all, though, folks, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. I was going to say I don't really have much else that I can think off the top of my head that I wanted to dive into there, but it was a busy week. It was a very, again, fruitful week. The channel, the love, the appreciation, just the growth. I mean, we didn't get to mention it yet, but I was going to do a little video, and then I figured I'll just do it here. We did hit 70,000 subscribers just a couple days ago, so thank you guys for that huge milestone. It's really weird to consider that we're like that much closer. We're over, like we're very close to getting to 100,000 if we keep at this pace and we keep on the trajectory. It's just like I didn't even know if we'd ever hit this milestone. I mean, shit, I said this at 10K. I didn't even think we'd hit that. But, like, it's fucking amazing. And we can't thank you guys enough.
Yeah, it's all wild to think back to when we first hit 100 subscribers and us being excited to finally get into the triple digits. But now to have already surpassed 70,000 and working our way up to 100,000, which when you start out, you're like, yeah, that's never going to happen. We'll see how far we can actually take it and go from there. But yeah, I think I remember looking when we had not even 10,000 and looking at other channels to be like, man, they have 20,000 subscribers. They're rolling in it. You know what I mean? And now it's like, whoa, we've surpassed that type of thing. And it's a weird space to be in, to go to our channel and be like, what? There's 70K subscribers there. You know, it's like, it doesn't feel real, but we thank you all. I think I can certainly say for Dylan, and I know for myself that I absolutely look forward to these Sunday chats and being able to discuss different things and ongoing horror topics, because we always have so many interesting discussions. Everyone brings really interesting insights that sometimes I hadn't even thought of, you know, and we go off on these little tangents, but I think that's what really makes the show that much more fun, because it's like, I like doing the videos that are so directed to the top fives, a review, but like we've talked about it, to get like instant feedback, instant discussion here. I absolutely love Sundays, and just being this community that we have and the people that show up is phenomenal. And again, I don't think words will ever express how we feel.
Truly. Yeah, it's and I'll just say this, I'll probably kick myself for saying this anyway, but I'm just going to go for it. There are many Sundays, especially when things on the channel weren't going so well and things in my personal life weren't going so hot, and I'm trying to figure things out and weigh a bunch of stuff all at once, where I'm not going to lie, I was just exhausted. And I come to sitting here waiting before Luke signs in. I'm usually getting things ready, and I'm just sitting there like, man, I hope this goes fast. This has got to be the fastest 2 hours ever. I'm so tired. I'm just like, I have no bandwidth or energy to perform or be cool or do anything for these people. And within 5 minutes of the stream starting and the conversation going in the chat and everything, it's like all of that just washes away. And it has happened every time I've ever been in a mood like that. It's amazing. Like last week was one of those where it was like, oh man, everything's so stressful. In things like I thought I wasn't going to get stuff out. And then as soon as we hit go, it's just like, why the hell was I even worried about this? Like, this was actually a break from what everything we're doing. So it's funny how that works sometimes.
It's really insane to think about it. Like, the way my Sundays go is that my daughter loves to go
Thank
over
you,
to my
guys.
mother's house to see her grandma for a few hours. So every Sunday, that's where I'm at, from starting from like probably like 5, and then we're there all the way up until typically 8:30. So my day is usually there, and then I race home and I hop on here like with 5 minutes to spare before showtime. So it's like I'm certainly there with Dylan, where it's like, man, it is tiresome, But then as soon as you pop on, and it's like another Sunday, another case of the scariest. It's like you get that second wind, and then the chat starts going, and you forget about everything, and it's like, man, you're just in it, and it does feel like a bit of a break because you just get to talk about what the ongoings of horror and touch base with everybody. It's fantastic.
Yeah, especially for like today, where we spend an hour of the show not even talking about our topics. We're talking about just all of the stuff that we all like to geek out about, and it's amazing to have us going like, okay, or me mostly saying, oh, we'll stop here, and then just getting encouragement from you guys to be like, no, keep it going, this is great, and then you feeding into it and taking the conversation into different places. It's one of the best things that I think we've done on the channel. I love this show so much, and I love getting to talk to you guys every week. So thank you all so much, and we will stop glazing you now. So that's it. Now you guys can just glaze us, please. That's all we want. We are very self-centered, very, very awful people. We are just the Zola face. We are just robots. We are
Very
AI.
vain.
Yes, we are actually just AI robots made from aliens. So, yeah.
We live in a data center.
Thank you, Violet. I appreciate it. And thank you to all the wonderful things you guys are saying. I'm glad everybody actually looks forward to this. You know what also warms my heart is seeing people like Gannon, who can't stop in every week, but does. They will still comment on the video and give us their thoughts of the episode. So hopefully Gannon made it to this point. Thank you, bud. We appreciate it. It's awesome. I love that. And then always getting feedback from people like Penelope on the or like even in the Discord, or even in the Patreon. It's like we're definitely working on making sure those are more like, I guess frequent stops for us other than just our uncensored content. And we have some things planned, so it's exciting to get those in motion now. And it's going to be good. So thank you as all for your support and continued support. So, all righty. Well, I think that's going to leave us there, folks. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the horse shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna slash your ass.